I went to my first vidcon and it was bad. I'm sure some of you are like, why did you go for the first time now and not like 10 years ago? Well, I wasn't a YouTuber 10 years ago. And I've been having FOMO the last few years, seeing my friends and my mutuals go to vidcon. And so I decided to go this year with the knowledge that VidCon is well past its prime, and that it has been specifically declining the past few years. So I was nervous going into it, but I was hopeful that I would still have fun. But it was bad. It was worse than I imagined, and so if you'd let me, I'd like to complain for a while. But first, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Cook Unity. So I was very nervous going into VidCon. I was frantically trying to finish a video that week, and so a lot of things fell through the cracks, and I accidentally had my Cook Unity order arrive the day before I was supposed to leave. Now, Cook Unity is a meal delivery platform, and it connects you with a ton of fresh, not frozen, fully prepped meals from award-winning chefs. And so I'm psychologically going through it, trying to pack for VidCon, and then I'm also thinking, no, my chicken tikka masala by Chef Andres Mendez. I'm gonna have to wait until I get back to eat it, even though I want to eat it now. And then when I got back from VidCon, I was like, yeah, this chicken tikka masala is better than VidCon. I mean, to be fair, that's a low bar. But I love convenient, yummy food, and Cook Unity offers 300 meals nationwide each week, including over 25 diets and global cuisines. So there's a lot of variety to fit all different preferences. The meals are handcrafted in small batches in kitchens that are local to you, and they are then delivered to you in this nice little cooler bag thing. There are over 180 chefs on the platform, including Nelson Brizuela and his delicious island-style chicken and rice. Nelson immigrated to the US from El Salvador and has been working his way up in kitchens for the past 20 years. I also tried Chef Esther Choi's delicious Japanese katsu curry. Esther learned how to cook Korean food with her grandmother. The food is really good, and it made me feel very fancy, even though all I had to do on my end is nuke it in the microwave for 2 minutes. And Cook Unity is offering my viewers 50% off their first order. So if you're interested in trying it, click the link in the description below and use my code SarahSarah50 to try Cook Unity and get 50% off your first order of chef-made meals delivered fresh to your door. So let's get into the logistics of VidCon. It was held June 25th through the 27th. That is Thursday through Saturday. I don't know why it takes place more of the days during the week than during the weekend, 2 weekdays and 1 weekend day. I guess it's always been like that though. So, and apparently they used to do Wednesdays, but they're not doing Wednesdays anymore. Because there was a thing I saw on the website that was like, why are you not doing Wednesdays anymore? And I was like, you guys used to do Wednesdays? I was gonna say, don't people have work? But I guess if this is like an influencer event, maybe they don't. VidCon is held at the Anaheim Convention Center, with a big asterisk that this year it was part of the Anaheim Convention Center. Another section of the Anaheim Convention Center was Fan Expo. That was held Friday through Sunday. This was a geeky pop culture convention with a lot of nerdy media celebrity guests like Mark Hamill. I found out that Fan Expo was happening because VidCon sent me an email about it. They were like, hey, this is happening the same weekend in the Anaheim Convention Center and you can get a discount on Fan Expo tickets. And I was like, that's a bad sign that VidCon doesn't need the whole convention center and is also simultaneously trying to sell tickets for this other event. Apparently they're run by the same parent company, and I guess they were like, while we have the Anaheim Convention Center paid for, let's just run 2 cons. Except I lied. It's 3 conventions simultaneously because there's also GorillaCon. They kept emailing me about GorillaCon, which is a separately ticketed gaming convention within VidCon. So even the part of the convention center that we are using for VidCon, they don't have enough programming to fill up that space, and so they are additionally doing GorillaCon. Again, a red flag. I'm sure you're wondering, what's GorillaCon? I didn't find this out until much, much later. I probably could have Googled it beforehand. I didn't really bother. But I found out while I was there that GorillaCon is a convention for the game Gorilla Tag, which is a VR game where you play as monkeys. And that's apparently enough of a thing that it deserves a whole section of VidCon and also an add-on ticket. Speaking of tickets, There are 3 tiers of ticket. The first tier is the fan tier. This gets you access to meet and greet signups, pre-sale merchandise, fan track programming, expo hall experiences, the live podcast studio, the VidCon opening celebration, VidCon After Dark programming, and the VidCon Street Fest. Then there is the creator ticket. This gets you access to the mentorship series, 3 days of creator pass programming, the creator HQ, exclusive access to a new networking tool, and the creator reception. And finally, there is the Pro Pass. Pro as in professional, so for digital media professionals. This gets you exclusive access to the welcome reception, a networking mixer, the VIP Expo Hall party, a networking and matchmaking app, networking sessions, industry track programming, think tank thought leadership roundtables, industry HQ, and a headshot booth. Now, Pro is not to be confused with Plus, which is just the fan tier, but it costs extra money and it gets you extra access and more meet and greets. The fan and creator passes were ballpark the same amount of money, $150-ish for 3 days, whereas Pro was like $800. So I got the creator pass because I am a creator. Arguably, I could have gotten the Pro Pass because I am a more established creator, but I didn't want to pay for that. So my ticket was $179 with taxes and fees included. And then I had to book accommodations. I am from LA, which is close to Anaheim, but not close enough to drive back and forth every day. So I booked the Marriott Hotel in the Anaheim Convention Center complex. So around the Anaheim Convention Center, there are some hotels that are in the same block that are like within walking distance. And I booked check-in on Wednesday and check-out on Sunday. I didn't want to have to worry about checking in or checking out on days where there was actual programming happening. So I hypothetically could have cut it a little bit closer and not stayed quite so many days, but I figured this would be less stressful for me. The hotel room was $305 a night, and then with taxes and fees, the total was $1,431. Then in the lead up to VidCon, I was getting a lot of emails. A lot of these emails went not to my spam, but to that tab in Gmail where it's like promotions or social or whatever. Gmail decided that these were not particularly important emails, and I kind of agree. A lot of the emails were about booking meet and greets. There were, I guess, times when new meet and greets were revealed and times when you could book them. At one point, they sent me an email, "Everyone but you is picking their meet and greets right now," which, like, don't speak to me like that. You don't know me. I did not pick any meet and greets because I did not know any of the people who were doing the meeting and greeting. They also sent me a lot of emails announcing/reminding me of various featured creators. And in all of these emails, they would have pictures of the people doing meet and greets and the featured creators. And unfortunately, I don't really know who any of these people are, which I actually think is okay. Like, I am not the target demographic for these people. That doesn't mean that they're not big and that they don't have an audience. I just don't overlap with them. But even though I don't think me personally not recognizing these creators is necessarily a bad sign for VidCon as a whole, it was a bad sign for my personal experience. And then a similar red flag is that only one of my creator mutuals was attending VidCon. Lula Loopsy went, thank God they were there, and they are making a VidCon video essay, which as of the time of me recording is not out yet, but once it's out, I will put links in all of the places. So I have quite a few mutuals, not to brag, and it felt like no one was coming to this VidCon, even people who had come in the past, which that's another red flag, that even people who have previously attended did not find it worth it to attend this year, which I understand. You have to take time out of your schedule, it's expensive, especially if you're not local and you have to fly in. But it seems like in the past, more people have found that worth it. But for this year, the year that I was there, people did not find it worth it. Then, I believe in early June, VidCon released the full schedule. So up until this point, we'd had the information associated with the ticket types. So for example, for creator, we knew that there was going to be a creator HQ and creator track programming, but we did not have the specifics as to what that programming would be. And it was at this point that it was revealed that the creator track was full of AI panels. And this was, I think, the biggest red flag for my experience. A Mac Ruby Woo Descendants Rise of Red, Red Flag. VidCon this year was being presented by Pop Store, which is an AI company, which I did not realize. I didn't know who they were. It's possible I was thinking of Pop Mart, the store that sells the little figures. I would have preferred that, but no. VidCon's main sponsor this year was an AI company, and they were fostering a strong AI presence at this convention. Just so we're all on the same page, I am extremely anti-generative AI. From an environmental perspective, it has a stronger negative impact than previous technologies. From a moral and ethical perspective, it is stealing and plagiarizing artists and writers. It is an unreliable technology that hallucinates information. And when it comes to creativity, such as in the case of making online video, I find it completely soulless and bankrupt, and it betrays a lack of skill and passion from the person doing the generating. But even if I didn't feel that way, even if I was interested in using generative AI tools to help me in my creator journey or whatever, I cannot fathom needing a bunch of panels to explain to me how to do it. It's not difficult to do. That's the whole point. So I would not have been happy if there were a few AI panels, but I would have been like, whatever, I can go to other panels. They have a lot of other stuff going on. This is just for the weird AI people. But the sheer number of AI panels that they had every day meant that they were sacrificing other types of programming, more diverse, different types of programming, and it felt like they were really just trying to sell us on the concept of AI. Having a bunch of panels makes it seem like there must be so much to talk about. It must be so useful. It must be the future. Because these panels were not just presented by Pop Store, who was the sponsor. There were also other AI companies presenting these panels. They're not even trying to sell us on using the sponsor of the con. They're trying to sell us on using any AI tools at all. So between the lack of people I care about attending and the AI stuff, I was pretty concerned going into VidCon, and I was regretting not going in previous years when things had seemed less bad. And there were definitely points leading up to VidCon where I was considering not going. However, a sort of window into my psyche, you perhaps know if you've seen my other event review content, Labyrinth Ball, the Forever Twilight and Forks Festival, Romanticycon. I'm pretty bad at going places and doing things. I'm a very anxious person. And so part of me was like, you're just stressed about VidCon because you've never done a convention and it's going to be several days and you're not really going to know anyone. And so separate from thinking that the event itself might be bad, you're just stressed and anxious about going at all. And I was concerned that if I backed out, it would not be because I was doing it based on a value judgment of if VidCon, the event, would be good. I would instead be making this decision based on my event anxiety. And I did not want to let the anxiety win. There was a part of me that was like, it still might be good. You still might have fun. You've regretted not going the past few years. It seems perhaps ill-advised to back out now. You've already committed to going. And so even though I was very stressed, I did still decide to go. So Wednesday morning, when I was going to go to the hotel and check in before the event, I was very stressed. My chest hurt. I delayed packing and getting ready. I just sort of laid in silence for a while, but I did successfully pack, and then I had my mom drive me and drop me off to the hotel. This is a classic Sarah move. I don't like driving. I hate traffic and also have a very bad sense of direction, so the whole time I'm driving anywhere, I'm stressed that I'm doing the wrong thing. I also hate dealing with parking. Parking in LA is always a giant mystery. I was nervous about not having a car, because being dropped off, I would just be stranded there with no car, but my mom was like, you're gonna be way more stressed out trying to drive yourself there, which was fair of her. I would also like to say, talking about all of this is getting me stressed out. I'm like not having a fun time. Okay, mom drove me. We listened to the Amy Sedaris hospitality book, I Like You, in the car, which we listened to once together many years ago, and we have quite a few inside jokes from that, so that was kind of a soothing car experience. It was kind of light and fun. We got to the hotel. Mom did self-parking, which was apparently annoying, but she dropped me off at the front. The reason Mom parked was because we were going to do lunch, as opposed to her just dropping me off and then leaving. Apparently, at the Marriott at the convention center, parking is $56 per day and $61 per day for valet parking. So I did in fact save like $200 by not parking my car there. So I went in, I had pre-checked in the Marriott Bonvoy app. So my room was ready, even though we got there before normal check-in time. I went in, put my bags away, and I realized that in the Marriott, they were holding a tech conference, the AMD Fellow Forum. There was a lot of guys walking around in Patagonia quarter zips. My mom was like, I bet people have a lot of affairs. And I was like, well, I don't know the gender breakdown of the AMD Fellow Forum, but maybe. Then we had lunch at the hotel restaurant. We were gonna split a club sandwich, and then we were told that the busser dropped a whole tray of food, and so our sandwich, they had to remake it, but they comped it. Then we went to VidCon registration so I could get my badge and my wristband. Here is my badge. It is the creator pass, and I wrote my name on it. Creator track was purple, and then the lanyard is advertising Pop Store's agentic AI named Echo Me, which is, I think, a little chatbot that answers comments for you. And then this was my creator wristband. It had, I've taken it apart because you have to cut it off of you to get it off, but it has this little RFID chip, which is branded with Toca Boca. I think because it was Wednesday and it was the day before the actual event, the registration area was extremely empty. Then Mom said that we should get snacks for my room. I have a history of not leaving my hotel room, even for food at events. So she drove me to the nearby Target. And as we were leaving the self-park area, the little self-pay kiosk was not working. It was displaying the Windows background, like with all the desktop apps and stuff, and whatever payment portal it was supposed to be displaying was not up there. So she pressed the little help button, explained the situation, and then we were allowed to leave without paying. So at this point, we hadn't paid for lunch and we hadn't paid for parking. Then I got some trail mix and some bars at the Target, and Mom dropped me off back at the hotel and she left. Throughout this, I was messaging Lulu Loopsy, like, hey, are you here? I am here, and I am bored. And so we did meet up that evening in the Anaheim Convention Center sort of courtyard area. There were a lot of food trucks set up, and also a skincare pop-up area. We were gonna enter into that food truck area, but we had to go around to the other side that had security checks. I believe we had to scan our wristbands, and then someone did a very perfunctory bag check. That was the only time anyone at VidCon looked inside of my bag. And then we decided to get dinner in downtown Disney. And by we, I mean me, because I found out that Lulu Loopsy had never been to Disneyland, and I was like, well, perhaps we should go to downtown Disney, give you a little taste of the experience. So we walked around a while, we got milkshakes and water, so neither of us wanted like dinner, and we talked for like a while. Very fun. And then we walked back. I went back to my room, and I ended up going to bed at like 1:30. Then Thursday morning, the alarm in the hotel room went off at 6:30. Why would it do that? And also, why would I assume that it was going to do that? Am I supposed to be checking the alarm clocks in hotel rooms to make sure they're not going to wake me up at 6:30? Never had to do that before. I did successfully go back to sleep, and then I woke up at like 9, and then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up at like noon. An important aspect of Sarah going to events is that in my day-to-day, I sleep a lot. So I also tend to sleep a lot going to events. But I had this schedule on my phone. There was also a VidCon app, which I never really bothered with. But I knew the schedule, and I knew that there was nothing I was particularly interested in. So it's not like I was missing important stuff by sleeping in. I feel like people are gonna say, wow, you slept in so late. You really weren't committed to having the full VidCon experience. You must have missed so many things. Don't worry. Also at this point, a Marriott employee came over the PA system and said that they were going to test the emergency systems. There was some construction going on in the lobby, like wheelbarrows full of plaster coming out from behind a mysterious door. So maybe it was connected to that. But at that point I was like, okay, I should try and get out of here before this happens. And then I never heard it go off. So maybe they didn't do it, or they did it later, or they tried to do it and it didn't work. But I successfully made it out of my hotel room and went to the courtyard area. There was a massive line for registration. I guess here is a good time to mention that I was not originally planning on making a main channel video about VidCon, and then I got increasingly annoyed with the whole thing, and now I am doing that. But I did not get a ton of B-roll because I didn't think I was going to be doing this. So I don't have B-roll of the giant line. You can kind of see the giant line in my B-roll for the banners on the side of the convention center, advertising the Pop Store AI tool. On this day, they had the whole courtyard and VidCon entrance sort of blocked off, and you had to go all the way to the bottom end of the courtyard, go through security there, and then you were in sort of like the VidCon bubble. That was not how it worked on Wednesday, but to be fair, it hadn't officially started on Wednesday. For security, I scanned my wristband and walked through a scanner thing. No one looked at my bag. It definitely would have slowed the whole operation down if they were checking people's bags. I'm gonna assume that the scanner technology was also somehow flagging anything bad in the bags, but it did feel kind of weird, especially because for Lula Loopsy and I to get into downtown Disney to have our milkshakes, someone checked our bags. Disney has that system on lock. They are going to be looking inside of your Loungefly bag. I don't go to enough events of this type to know if this level of security was normal, but I am mentioning it because it felt a little weird. Then I went inside of VidCon, the first level. So each floor of the building was for a different ticket type, and the first floor was for the fan tier ticket. This was also the expo hall. So on the very far left in Hall C, there were some food vendors. There were some food vendors on the edges all throughout the first floor. There was also a live podcast studio. This was a glass box where sometimes podcasts were being recorded. Then there was an area called the community zone. This had vendors selling a lot of beauty stuff, and a creator named Lana's Life had a collab with Claire's. If I were a true investigative journalist, I would have spent a lot more time in these areas and talked to people, been like, what are you guys selling? Oh, Lana's Life has a collab with Claire's? Tell me more. But I don't know, it feels sort of rude to do that because I'm not coming in with authentic intentions. Like, I'm not gonna buy any of this stuff. I feel like I'm wasting the people's time. I feel like it's kind of rude. I also was not intending on making this video, so it wasn't as though I felt like I needed to get a lot of information and content for the video. And even by the end of the event, when I was sort of feeling like I had a lot to say, and I was maybe going to make this video, it feels like talking to people with the intention of being critical in a video. Not even critical, but like, I don't know. It would have felt weird to go up to the Lana's Life booth to be like, hey, tell me what's going on here. Let me get some B-roll. Just to cover it in a video and be like, and they had this thing. It's not as though I'm making fun of it, but I don't know. I'm sure I'm overthinking it. I'm sure people who like review stuff and cover stuff do get more involved, and it's fine. But I did sort of have a feeling walking through this whole expo hall, like, I'm sort of an interloper. I'm not meant to be here. This is not for me. And I'm sort of intruding by investigating this area. So I should sort of get in, get out, and leave and not cause any problems. I'm sure some of you will be like, that's ridiculous. But some of you will be like, I know what you mean. Then there was a pickleball court for creators to compete playing pickleball. I think they were maybe live streaming it or filming it or something. And then the back of that hall, Hall C, was the main stage. Ton of seats set up there. I don't think I was ever there when anything was really happening on the main stage, though. Then the middle hall was Hall B, and they had a creator track zone. So these were all booths by tech and video production companies. There were some camera companies, some AI companies, Blackmagic, who makes DaVinci Resolve, which is the editing software I use. They had a booth, and they had like 4 or 5 guys just like standing there ready to talk to you. And I was like, I guess I could talk to them and be like, hi. But that felt silly because it's like, I don't need you to tell me about your product. I already know about your product. And also it's a free software, so it's not even like you need to sell me on anything. There was also a big Pop Store AI booth. I say booth, it was like walled in and had tunnels going into the center where there was a bunch of Pop Store employees on laptops ready to talk to you about Pop Store. I did not want to do that. To me, that would have felt the most rude to go in and talk to these Pop Store employees. I don't know how much money they're making working the expo hall floor of VidCon, trying to talk to people and sell them on using Pop Store, but to talk to them and be like, so tell me about the Echo Me AI, with the knowledge that I'm gonna go home and make fun of it as cringe and morally bankrupt. Like it felt unnecessary to go and talk to those people. I guess it would have been interesting to see what their pitch of their product was, but I was also afraid that I was going to go in there and start talking to people and feel awkward and trapped. Like, oh, now I have to listen to your pitch? Oh, do you want to sign up? No, I'm just here to scope out your evil wares and then leave. Make fun of you on my social media. Then there was a basketball court. It was like a sports area, basketball court, and I guess they did sports there sometimes. I'm sure there are sports creators and people who watch that. I don't know if any of the people at VidCon were like big sports creators. Maybe it was just because like people like basketball. And this will be fun because I think there were periods of time where they had programming there where you could like watch creators talk or maybe also play sports, but then also some of the time you could just play basketball on this court. I think they had an age minimum though. I think they didn't want the liability of like small children playing basketball. Then there was an artist alley and a maker's alley area. In my cursory walkthrough, seemed like a lot of garbage. I mean, you know, it's every con where it's like the little 3D printed dragon toys and some bad looking crochet stuff that looks like it was printed with AI art. Some of the stuff looked like just actual artists selling prints. There was some clothing, I think. Not like printed graphic tees, but just like normal clothing. Someone was selling witch hats, I think. So it wasn't all bad, but as with, I think, a lot of modern artist alley stuff, a lot of it seemed not great. There was also a giant area, Millions Soul K-Beauty, where there were a bunch of booths giving away samples and selling various K-beauty skincare products. And I maybe could have walked through there, but I really don't need a bunch of free skincare. And then in the back of Hall B, there was the Gorilla Con area. I did not further investigate this. I'm assuming you had to scan your wristband to get in there. There was a lot of children over there. Quite a few children all over the place. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like VidCon has always had a presence of children and teens. Because when I'm thinking back to like peak VidCon, I think of a lot of teenagers wanting to meet their favorite YouTubers, right? I don't think it's necessarily a new phenomenon. People who are fans of internet creators and want to buy a ticket to see them / meet them, I think are going to trend younger. But I did feel like there was a lot of children who were like elementary school age. I think because of Gorilla Tag and video game creators in general, like Minecraft YouTubers maybe. I think a lot of the beauty / lifestyle creators have a young audience. I mean, obviously that creator who was doing a collab with Claire's. Whenever I mentioned to anyone, there's a lot of kids here, I feel like the reaction was more like, yeah, not like, I know, it's crazy. I think it was like, yes, there often are. So I have no basis for comparison as to if there are more children than there used to be. It doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary, but it was interesting to me, someone who had never been there, being like, oh, small children running around. So I thought I'd mention it. Also, next to the Gorilla Con area was a video game area that was not part of Gorilla Con, so it was not separately ticketed. You could just go in there, I think. I thought it was connected to Gorilla Con, and then I maybe later realized it wasn't. So initially I thought I wasn't allowed in there, which is why I didn't investigate, and then later I realized, oh, I guess I could, but like, I don't think I need to. And then finally, on the right-hand side was Hall A, which was where there were the setups for meet and greets. So I walked around, overall not my vibe, and so then I went upstairs to the creator level, which was on floor 2. This was where I spent most of my time, and it was a sort of long corridor hallway. I mean, I guess not a hallway because it was open on one side, but a long walkway area. And then branching off from that, open areas that had smaller rooms on either side. I feel like I'm describing this in a really weird, terrible way. It's a hallway with little open rooms that are sort of hubs that have rooms on the sides of it, and those rooms are actually closed off rooms where stuff is happening. And it's sort of matched up with the halls on the floor below, as opposed to the fan tier expo hall, which was like all connected. One big open space. One of the open areas in the creator floor had another pop store booth. This was barely a booth. This was like a double-sided backdrop and some tables with pop store employees. I, again, did not talk to these people. At this point, I sat in a chair up on the creator floor. I was a little bit overwhelmed, and I was looking at the schedule like, well, there's nothing exactly right now, which was kind of a continuous problem. A lot of stuff I was vaguely a tiny bit interested in overlapped, and then there were a lot of periods of time with nothing going on. So this was a time where there was nothing going on that I was remotely interested in, so I just kind of sat for a little bit. And then I went to the first time at VidCon meetup. There was a room with circular banquet tables that was for these meetups. They had meetups for all different types of creators. This one was for creators attending VidCon for the first time. I kind of popped my head in. All the tables seemed very full. I didn't love the vibe. So then I left. And then I went and saw a panel, How Creators and Managers Build Brand Partnerships That Last. And this was when I had the realization that creator track programming was mostly for people starting out. Because when they talked on this panel, it was about what to do when you get your first brand partnership. How do you know when it's time to bring in management? Stuff that no longer applies to me and where I'm at. Maybe it would have been helpful advice like 2 years ago. But also, I unfortunately, I think a lot of this advice has to be sort of generic because people can be in all different situations. Everyone attending all of these different panels is going to have different numbers of followers, making different types of content, different numbers of average views, different levels of engagement, different audience demographics. So there's a lot of information that's just sort of generic, which for me, sitting there, was kind of boring. Then I decided to check out the Creator HQ area. This had been pitched on the website as like a cool space just for creators where you can film content, make stuff, talk and collab with other attendees. I believe they had a photo from last year's Creator HQ, which had some cool mood lighting and stuff in there, versus this year's Creator HQ, which was pathetic. They had set up some walls with photo op backgrounds that said like VidCon on them, and there were some bean bags on the floor, and the most horrendous fluorescent lighting ever. So even if you wanted to try and film or take pictures in there, it was gonna look really bad. So I sat there for a while, and then I went to the Women Creator Meetup. I talked to some nice people. It was interesting to talk to people because there's a real range of the type of content that people made. So some of the people that I talked to at this meetup were in more traditional media, like filmmaking and voice acting. There were some people who were into writing and looking to transition into video making. As we know, nowadays, there's a lot more short form creators. And I feel like whenever I explained what I did, no one was ever negative to me about it, but people were sort of like surprised. Like, oh, how interesting. The fact that I do long form, the fact that my primary platform is YouTube, the fact that I make video essays and commentary videos. I would say the vast, vast majority of people here were not in that situation at all. So it wasn't even just there weren't a lot of creators I recognized or knew. It was like there aren't even a lot of creators who do anything remotely similar to what I do. There weren't none, but that was not most of the clientele. Then I went to a mentorship series about burnout. The mentorship series just refers to a sort of small group as opposed to a big panel. So you're sitting in a room with the person speaking, all sitting around a table. It's more of a one-on-one situation. They cap all of the mentorship groups at 19 people. And this one was about creator burnout. It was hosted by Josh Zimmerman, who is a creator coach who specifically focuses on burnout. It's like, wow, what a niche job this man has. He was nice. He was very mellow. We talked about creator burnout. There was a group of young men who all make video game content around the game Geometry Dash. There were some creators who make teacher-based content, and there was me. Talk was fine, not particularly useful for the way I personally experience burnout. I kind of knew that going into it. I was more just looking for something to do. It sounded interesting. Then everyone chatted for a little bit after, and I ended up hanging out with this one guy for a little while. I mean, I feel like a lot of this whole VidCon experience is me going, I guess I may as well do this. This'll kill some time. That evening was supposed to be the VidCon Creator Hall of Fame ceremony. This is basically VidCon trying to get big OG YouTubers to show up, and they can't get them to really show up for any extended length of time or to do anything that interesting, but they're baiting them to come by giving them an award. And so there were a couple OG creators, Markiplier, Michelle Phan, who were receiving awards on the main stage. I did not go see that, but I was vaguely aware of it happening. Another thing that was happening during the day that I should mention was the networking tool that we received access to as part of the creator track. They had you fill out a questionnaire which felt very abstract, psychological. I thought it was maybe going to be like what kind of content you make, what your goals are as a creator. No. It was questions like, I would sacrifice stability to pursue a passion, and you're rating these statements on a scale of 1 to 7. So then it takes that information that you've given it and matches you with someone who presumably gave similar answers, and the VidCon networking tool texts both of you and connects you within a private chat, and you can text with each other until the next day when the next match is released. I did a little bit of messaging that first day. It was very much like, how are you enjoying VidCon? It's okay, a lot of AI stuff though. I know, that's a bummer. What kind of content do you make? Oh, that's cool. But spoiler alert, the next 2 days, the people I was matched with never texted me, and then I kind of immediately forgot that the matching had even happened, and I forgot to reach out to them. So, not overly successful as a networking tool. I believe the people in the pro industry level got a more robust networking tool, I think because they're assuming that you're more legit and planning on doing actual networking as opposed to a creator just starting out who just wants to talk to some people. But that's what that meant in the ticket description. I went back to my hotel room and did a lot of extreme waffling as to whether or not I should go to Disneyland. Disneyland is right there, and I was kind of bored, and I was like, maybe I should go to Disneyland. Oh, there were also 5 AI creator panels on Thursday that I didn't go to. Opening day keynote, Grind Less, Create More, the AI Creator Era, presented by Popstore. AI Reality Check, Think You Know AI? Think Again, presented by Popstore. How to be a value-first creator, Winning on Authenticity in an AI World. Don't be misled by that title. It's about how to be authentic while also using AI. Find Your Audience, Using AI to Grow Reach, presented by Chronicle Studios. And 106 AI Tools in 15 Minutes. Then on Friday, I got up at like noon again, made it to the convention center at 1. I went around the expo hall again and got B-roll because I did not get B-roll that first day. And then I went up to the creator floor. I saw Lula Loopsy walking around. They're very distinctive, which helps. And so then we hung out for a little while. We went to the YouTube Creator Lounge Greenhouse experience. YouTube had a lounge area that you had to wait in line for that was themed around plants. And you got to play little games and win basically like carnival prizes, but they were plant themed. I didn't really want to play any of the games. I also didn't really want to win any of the prizes. I did grab this. This is a wildflower seed bomb, and you can plant this little seed thing. They gave us all these bags. I think they were expecting you to have various carnival prizes that you had to carry around, which is why they gave us the bags, but I didn't really have anything to put in the bag. They did have a little photo booth, so Lulu Loopsy and I took some photos. It took them from a very high angle. I feel like we are very small in the frame. Then we hung out in the Creator HQ for a little bit, and we took some pictures. The pictures are poorly lit. You'd think them making a space for creators, they'd get better lighting in there, but no. know. Then we went to the panel Influencing for Good, How Advocacy Creators Impact Democracy. The reason I wanted to go to this panel was because there is a teacher creator named Miss Frazzled, and I'm a big fan of her. She used to do a podcast with another teacher creator named Miss Redacted. The two of them are very good friends. They have a very fun dynamic together. I love teacher content, librarian content, museum content. Miss Frazzled talks a lot about politics in education, and I was excited to see her speak on this panel. Did the panel super relate to anything I do? No. But I wanted to go anyway, because she was like the only person where I was like, oh my god, I love that person. Lula Loopsy had to leave partway in to film some stuff for their video, so they left. But I watched the panel, and then afterwards, I hung out afterwards with some teacher and politics creators. That was fun. Multiple people were like, are you a teacher? And I was like, no, just a big fan. Then I went to the creator meetup book talk, which I would maybe argue that I make some book focused content. I would not describe myself as a book talk creator necessarily, both because I don't really make book content on TikTok and also because the implication as to what type of books you're talking about based on the label book talk is not really what I do. I talk about like children's and middle grade books from at least 10 years ago. So like not really that, but I was like, there might be some people there who like books, and I like books. I met a guy there, we hung out and chatted, and we ended up going to some panels together. Again, I was like, sure, this is a way to spend some time, I guess. First, we went to the tips and tools every creator needs to make amazing video content. This was basically a sewing creator showing you how to use Adobe Premiere for mobile. To edit short form, I typically use CapCut, and to edit long form, I use DaVinci Resolve. So I have never used Adobe Premiere, even though I do have a graphic design degree and am very familiar with the Adobe suite. But it was interesting seeing Adobe's mobile editor. Then we went to AI from a writer's perspective. He wanted to go to that, and I was like, well, I guess I have nothing else going on. We got there a little bit late, but it is my understanding this was hosted by a lady who makes AI-generated short films for companies. And so she showed a short film that she made in partnership with a company of some kind for some reason. And it was supposed to be like a true crime short film about a monkey who had smoked a cigarette a long time ago, and now an old lady is complaining about this crime that happened. And it's a reveal that it turned out it was a monkey that had smoked a cigarette, and that was the crime. That's what I gleaned from the stuff she was talking about when we got there. I fortunately / unfortunately missed the context. So that's what I see. That's what I've sort of pieced together. So she talked about using various AI tools to make short films. She was also talking about how she thinks that it is the future in traditional media, because that's what she does. She does not do social media, though she mentioned that she should probably try and get into doing social media, which is a funny thing to say at vidcon. Traditional media is going to start using generative AI as sort of proof of concept, because obviously it is much cheaper and easier to produce a short film with a monkey when you don't actually have to have animators CGIing a monkey. You don't have to location scout, you don't have to pay actors, you don't have to rent locations and equipment, you don't have to have crew. So if you're trying to create a proof of concept for an idea, it's going to be very cheap and easy to produce that with generative AI. And then you can get approval for a budget and then make something traditional. That's where she thinks the industry is going, which was an interesting perspective. Obviously, living in LA, there's a lot of film and TV production here. I mean, for the most part, nothing is actually being filmed here, but like companies are here. People working in those industries are here. And so the film and TV world is something I'm very like aware of. It's happening all around. So it was interesting hearing her talk about generative AI in that way. I think it will be interesting to see how Gen AI is used in film and TV as opposed to just social media content. For all that I am against it, I'm aware that everything comes back to money, and obviously it is very cheap as opposed to making things traditionally. So that was interesting hearing her talk about that. I don't think her experience of working in traditional media and making things proof of concept or collaborating with brands, I don't think that necessarily is useful to a lot of people who were here to see that panel, who were planning on using generative AI for social media content. Obviously, there's overlap, but that's not exactly, I think, applicable. So she talked about her whole process. She did specify that at least for the first round of the script, she is doing it herself. She's not having an AI generate a script for her. She writes a script and then she has AI do some passes on it, which was funny because the title of this talk is AI from a writer's perspective. And she's saying, like, I use it for everything except the writing. Then she took some audience questions. Someone who works making social media content, I believe in some sort of educational field, asked her about not using it for writing. He was like, are you against using it for writing? Do you think it has shortcomings? And she was like, no, if I had to make things at scale like you, then I would use it. I don't know if she specified that because it was educational content and less of like narrative creative writing, that was also part of her rationale. I don't know if she mentioned that or if I'm just making that up. There was also a question about backlash to AI. Like, we're starting to use AI in our production. How do you deal with backlash slash how should we deal with backlash? And she was like, I would make some behind the scenes content explaining your whole workflow and like talking to your editor and having him explain like, this is how my workflow used to be and this is how it is now. And it's so much faster and we can put out so much more content for you guys, blah, blah, blah. Someone asked about AI in a legal perspective. So like generating the characters for this short film. What if someone were to come and say, hey, this character you generated looks like me, and they try to like sue you? And she was like, well, first of all, I never use names of real people in my prompts. So I'm never going to say, make me a news anchor who looks like Ryan Reynolds. I'm going to say just a description of what I'm looking for and not any comparisons to real people. I would also keep a log of all of your prompts and everything that you do so that you can then, if anyone questions you, share that information and be like, look, it does not intentionally share any resemblance to you. It was interesting hearing people's concerns and seeing people's interest in this technology. I'd say overall it seemed really focused on output and the amount that you can output when you're using generative AI slash the lower cost of the output versus doing things traditionally. So it seemed like people who were not in a financial position to make things traditionally or were trying to put out such a high output of things that generative AI made it way faster and easier to do that. But it's very product focused. It's very end result focused. I don't know. From my perspective as a viewer, I would prefer less content that doesn't use AI. If the only way you can make higher quality graphics is with AI, I would prefer you just not do it. From a creator perspective, I would prefer people produce things on their own, even if they have to work within limitations to make that happen. Like maybe the script doesn't have a smoking monkey in it. But of course, there were 5 other AI panels that day. AI magic behind your content, presented by Kineto. No team, no problem. How AI is leveling the playing field for creators, presented by Popstore. Storytelling in the age of AI, create, don't compete. Mentorship series. The YouTube growth blueprint, using AI to scale your channel, presented by YouTube. Stop guessing, start knowing, how AI is changing what's possible for Facebook creators. And AI from a writer's perspective, which I already talked about. So after that, I decided I'm gonna go to Disneyland. I bought a ticket. I was able to get a slight discount by buying it through VidCon because VidCon had a deal with Disneyland. I got there at like 6. I just walked over and then I was able to do a lot of different things. All of the recent times I've been to Disneyland, I've gotten a migraine, and so I was afraid this would happen again because I have chronic migraines. But going alone, I think, was a lot more chill. Usually I go with my family and I'm trying to operate the disability return time stuff for my younger brother. It's a little bit more of a high pressure experience. So this time I just wandered around. I did a lot of stuff that I don't usually do. I sometimes like to buy a doll to commemorate a certain experience. I didn't love my doll options. I almost got this little Eeyore Bumblebee. They have currently a line of Winnie the Pooh Bumblebee toys, but it was like $20. So I was like, no, thank you. And then I walked back to my hotel. My feet hurt a lot. I was quite tired, but all in all, very glad I did Disneyland. Because in my mind, like, the biggest expense here was the hotel. I'm paying for this hotel. I'm right by Disneyland. I may as well go to Disneyland. Comparatively, the price for the VidCon ticket was not that much, and so if I miss some stuff, that's not that bad. And I also love doing Disneyland in the evening because it's not as crowded and it's also not as hot. So it's not even like I missed a ton of VidCon stuff during the day to like just leave and go to Disneyland. Like I went when stuff was done. But that was probably like a pretty big highlight of the experience for me. Just a chill Disneyland experience, but I still got like a ton done. I had at this point mentioned to multiple people of like, I think I might go to Disneyland. And everyone was encouraging, but in sort of a way of like, I wouldn't personally do that, but you should go for it. And I'm glad I did. Then the final day, which was Saturday, again, got up at like noon, and then I very briefly went to a panel called Decoding the Algorithm, What Your Audience Actually Wants on YouTube, presented by YouTube. Because then Lulaloopsy messaged me that they were in the Creator HQ, and I was like, that sounds way more fun than this panel, goodbye. We hung out, they had another friend there, so that was fun to like meet a new person, hang out with them. And at that point, Lulaloopsy told me that all of the pro/industry track panels had been canceled for the day, which is crazy. That ticket is $800, and for one of the 3 days, you're just gonna cancel everything? At various points during this experience, I flip-flopped between being pleased that I had not bought the industry track and kind of annoyed that I had not bought it. Because on the one hand, it was a lot of money, and I don't think it would be that much of an improvement over the creator experience. Like, I think a lot of the programming was still stuff that I wasn't particularly interested in. But on the other hand, it would have been more relevant to where I am as a creator. It would have been a lot better for networking. Thank God I didn't pay $800 for them to cancel one of the 3 days. If that had happened to me, I would be on the news. I would have paid 1,000 Etsy witches to level the Anaheim Convention Center, and you would never have VidCon again. But weirdly, the vibe with VidCon, especially for creators, is so much like not that invested in the VidCon programming. Like VidCon is just sort of an excuse to all hang out together in LA/Anaheim. And so people seemed vaguely disappointed. Some of Lulaloopsy's other mutuals came over at that point, and they were also industry track. And people were like, yeah, it's lame that they canceled it. Anyway, we're planning on leaving and going to so-and-so's party, because a lot of people are there just like to hang out. There's a lot of parties in the evening. And so weirdly, I guess it doesn't even matter that much that they canceled the programming, because I think a lot of people there at that level didn't care about the programming that much anyway. But for me, who didn't really have friends there, was not invited to any parties, this was not a super social hangout with friends experience, I would have been much more annoyed. So then various people left. I was alone again, and I caught the tail end of the panel, Promptly Neurodivergent, Generating Personal and Professional Workflows with AI. It was like the only thing going at that time, and it was about how to use agentic AI to have it be like your personal assistant for if you have like ADHD. I don't really want to get into the ethics of generative AI as a accessibility tool. That seems like a more nuanced conversation than I'm willing to have right now. But I didn't really see that much of it anyway. It was like kind of ending. Then I went to Creator IP is the hidden secret to long-term revenue. One of the people involved was Hannah Hoffman, which I remember back when she used to make Dan and Phil animatics. So I was like, oh, Hannah Hoffman. I guess now she's in charge of making merch for Mythical. That was sort of my understanding from half paying attention to this panel. It was mainly about making merch and products, and that's not really a thing I'm that interested in doing. I don't really have merch ideas. So I didn't find it particularly interesting or useful. Then I went to a different panel called How to Find Your Own Best Practices. When she gave the panel, I think she called it Decoding the Algorithm, and it was about how to read YouTube's analytics in the back end for your videos. So I don't know why it was called Finding Your Own Best Practices. That it was not a super accurate title. I mean, it just doesn't matter, but it was kind of confusing me trying to figure out in retrospect which panels I went to. I was like, is that what that panel was called? Why was it called that? But she seemed nice. I think she works for the game theory company, whatever their company is called. Theorist, maybe. And I went up and talked to her a little bit after. I think I asked her, like, how do you know if a video is underperforming just because the idea is bad or because the packaging is bad? And she gave some answer. Honestly, I mainly just went up to ask her a question because I was like, well, there's nothing going on right now. I guess I'll go talk to this lady. Then I went and watched part of the panel, The Modern Video Podcast Playbook. Basically, what was happening was there was a rooftop after party hosted by Pinterest for the creator tier, but that did not happen until like 5 or 6. And I didn't want to lose momentum and go back to the hotel room, so I was just finding panels and things to do until we reached that point. I probably could have gone back down to the fan tier expo hall and investigated that more, but I so didn't want to. So I was like, I guess I'll just go to a bunch of different panels. And none of them were particularly interesting. Obviously, I don't really have anything to say about any of them. I'd say a lot of the rooms were like not even half full. I think a lot of people were maybe not that interested. But then finally it was time for the creator reception. So went up to the roof, would wait in line for them to scan the wristband. They had little bar tents along the wall, and then sort of in the middle there were food stations. They had little appetizer type food, and then also a cooler full of like ice cream sandwiches. There was also a photo booth presented by Pinterest. You had to sign up for some sort of Pinterest creator something, and then you were able to take part in the Pinterest photo booth. I think the photos turned out very cute. Then I sort of wandered around. I bumped into one of the teacher creators from earlier, and then I met the people she was talking to. Some people left to go investigate Fan Expo. I think they had heard that they could just go in. I don't think that's true. I think they would have had to buy a ticket, though I do think the tickets were discounted, but I think they were just bored and wanted to go investigate. I probably should have gone with them. That maybe would have been interesting. But at that point I was with a slightly different group of people. More people had come up, so I was talking to them. And then we decided to go down to VidCon After Dark in one of the rooms on the creator tier. There were some creators, didn't know who they were, playing games together. When we got there, the creators were playing some sort of rapping, rhyming game, which was sort of chaotic. It probably would have been better if I knew who these people were. But then I decided to go back to the hotel because I knew I had to get up earlier than I had been getting up in order to check out of the hotel. So, and of course, that day, there were 7 AI panels. Steal our systems. Post 10 times more with these AI tools. Use AI as your creator assistant, not your replacement. The Creator Growth Engine. They solve a slice, we run the whole thing. Presented by Phi Pro AI. Promptly neurodivergent. Generating personal and professional workflows with AI. Who owns your face in the age of AI? Presented by Persona Shield. AI as your assistant. Work smarter, create more. Mentorship series. And Creative Without the Burnout, AI, Music, and the Future of Creator Wellbeing, presented by Lighthouse Entertainment. And the next day, I checked out of the hotel. I waited for about an hour for my mom to get there and pick me up. She had my brother with me, and she didn't want to do the drive down to me and the drive back up back to back. So then we went to the Anaheim Library, because my brother really likes libraries, which I did get an Anaheim library card out of the whole deal. So I was in a bad mood. I was very like burnt out and tired, but in hindsight, I am pleased that I now have an Anaheim library card. Cool thing about California is that if you live in California, you can get any of the California library cards, though you do, for the most part, have to go get them in person. And I am just slowly collecting an army of library cards. But that was my VidCon experience. I feel like some people are going to try and victim blame and be like, it's your fault, you had a bad time. I've seen some creators posting on TikTok about their not great VidCon experience, and some person left a comment on a video that was like making fun of the person. Like, ugh, Chuck E. Cheese is way less fun now that I'm 45 instead of 7. Implying like this is for children and it's your own fault for going to it and not having fun. Which my argument is they're selling tickets for creators. Clearly they want creators to come. They are just not doing a good job making that experience worthwhile. I'm afraid that some people are going to say that I didn't try hard enough to have a good time. Like I didn't go to enough things. I didn't talk to enough people. Sometimes with events, people are of the opinion that you have to make your own fun. Like if you didn't have fun at any given event, that is a negative reflection on you as a person. If you had gone in with a whimsical, pure heart and and talked to people and did everything the convention had to offer, then you would have had a good time. And to a certain extent, I think that is true. I think you do need to go into events trying your best to participate, going in with an optimistic attitude, which I would argue I did. I was gonna say that I just had my spirit crushed, which that sounds too dramatic. I just unfortunately went and what was available to me was not very good, which I do feel like if you are hosting an event in exchange for money, I am allowed to have expectations about the quality of the experience. So where does VidCon go from here? A big caveat is that I was not there for the fan experience. I was not really taking part in that. That was not really for me. I think that aspect of the convention is still reasonably successful, though I have no basis of comparison for how well it has done previous years. I don't know their ticket sales, so I'm assuming the fan tier went okay, but I'm speaking more specifically about the creator experience. How do they improve that? My first concern is that they maybe don't want to. It feels like VidCon currently is in a weird state where they're running this fan convention that's going hypothetically okay, and they are simultaneously running a different part of the convention that is for digital media creators and professionals. And that aspect of it does not feel as successful. VidCon is the big internet creator digital media convention, and the professional slash creator side of that is in theory part of that. They are still creating programming for those people. It is still hypothetically a part of this event, but it does not really feel like the priority of the event. And I think for right now, they're still, for the most part, the biggest game in town when it comes to that. I mean, definitely in town when you're speaking about West Coast LA, but I also just mean like in that industry. I know Vid Summit exists, which is for creators. I believe it's in like Texas this year. And recently there's been an increase in creators going to Cannes Lions, which is a marketing focused event in Cannes, France, that is increasing its presence of influencers and content creators. But that is also run by the same parent company that runs VidCon. It feels like maybe they think that Cannes Lions is their serious industry event and VidCon is their fun fan event. But if you think it's an investment to go to VidCon, going to France is an even bigger deal. I would prefer to not live in a world where Cannes Lions is the main creator event. I would prefer for them to continue putting effort into their creator programming at VidCon, but it's also possible that they think that they are doing enough. Because VidCon kind of has a monopoly on this type of event, they can keep offering worse programming and people will still come, which anecdotally I think is not working. I think the past few years have been an indication that creators might just stop showing up. Creators don't want to attend, they don't want to be featured creators, they don't want to talk on panels. I've said earlier that I think it's fine that I don't really recognize most of the people who were featured creators at VidCon, and for the most part that's true. I'm not going for the fan tier experience, so I think it's fine that there's a lot of people that kids and teens are excited to see. I think that is a big demo of the VidCon fan experience, but it is kind of a bad sign that I, a person who is chronically online, recognized less than a handful of the people attending in any official capacity. Because I think they should still be trying to get people for the creator and industry tracks that appeal to someone in my demographic, an adult person who wants to hear from established creators. I think that's another problem with having so much AI programming, is you're bringing a lot of people who no one recognizes or cares about, who are just like people who work in the AI field, but that is not going to be a draw for people attending your convention. I think you could have swapped out the people giving those AI talks for other AI experts and it wouldn't have made a difference. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think even people who are interested in seeing AI panels would still be excited to see established people in the creator space giving non-AI panels. Like this year on the pro industry tier, Ned Fulmer from the Try Guys was giving a talk. Disgraced cheater Ned Fulmer. He's the best you guys can get, which I don't know how VidCon is supposed to get better people. I'm assuming they're asking and people are saying no, so I don't know how you convince them, but maybe try harder. Because ultimately, if your event's main draw for creators is just that they get to see each other and hang out and go to parties, they don't need to go to your event for that. They don't need to buy a ticket. Lula Loopsy and their friends could have all just gone to house parties in Anaheim and not bought a VidCon ticket. Like, whenever I talk to someone about how it was my first VidCon, they would first of all apologize and be like, oh, sorry, it's been better in the past. I'm sorry that this is your first one, which, what a terrible sign that is. But also, people would often say, yeah, the event itself isn't that great, but it's mainly good to see your friends and talk to people and meet fans and network, which unfortunately, if the main reason you're going is to see friends, you can see them some other way. That is not a feature exclusive to the event. And on the flip side, if your friends or people you want to network with are not showing up to the event, then there's no reason for you to come. And I think that's what happened this year. Because I'm telling you right now, I am not going to VidCon next year. If there's people who I really want to see who happen to go next year, which seems unlikely, I could just go down, have dinner with them, and then go to Disneyland on my own. Which sounds like a much better experience than the actual VidCon experience I had. So we'll see. I'm not optimistic about the future of VidCon. There was some speculation at the event that perhaps the parent company is going to sell VidCon. I think it's already changed hands once in the past few years, which I think that might be necessary. I think VidCon in its current form does not have a lot of built up goodwill. A change in management might be what it needs, so they can be like, we're not like those old guys, we're gonna run it differently. Do you want to be involved next year? And then they can bring in some of the people they've lost. But as for the current parent company, do less AI stuff is going to be my main tip. If you can get any sponsor other than an AI company, I'd say do it. I don't care what it is at this point. But ultimately, I don't even know if I have any advice that'll work. It's possible this is just a dying event, which is a shame. That's not what I want to happen. I'm just saying that seems like what is currently going on. What do you think about the future of VidCon? Did you go this year? Probably not. Did you go in the past? That seems more likely. What do you think of this year? That's all I have for you today. I'd like to give a big thank you to my patrons and a special shout out to Austin Poston, Checkered Omega, Court, Devonium7, Jillian, Megan, and Melanie Mermaid. I have a Patreon where I post monthly bonus content. Just another way to support me, no pressure. I'm Sarah Seraph on all social media, and I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So, bye!